Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this great ASSOCHAM conference, which has been on for the last 2 days now. We've had enough deliberations over the last 2 days on how Atmanirbhar Bharat can be really taken forward. And today, as I speak, we've got a very distinguished panel with me to take forward a new agenda, which is, the strategy to boost exports. How can India look at it from a very different perspective, and what is the entire spiel which the government can now change with the participation of the industry? I have with us an eminent panel which would be able to delve on the entire situation right now and who have been really working hard since the time the entire lockdown was announced by the Honorable Prime Minister. They've not only looked at solving and also coming up with innovative solutions, but also working together to make India a real destination that we have already dreamed of. Let me first introduce you to the entire panel. I have with me Dr. Prasad. Dr. Prasad is presently the Joint Drug Controller with the CDSCO, and he has a 3 decades experience in the regulatory field, starting the career from testing, analysis, method development for analysis of drugs, including drafting of monographs for the Indian Pharmacopedia, drug inspector in the CDSO, as well as the deputy drugs controller here. He headed the South Zone in Chennai, Hyderabad Zone, West Zone, monitoring and supervising investigations, inspections, approvals of licenses, NOCs, coordinating with different government organizations such as Customs, the Director General of Foreign Trade, Narcotics, for import as export for drugs, devices, and cosmetics. And right now at the headquarters, he has a very important role as the JDC with Dr. Somani's office. Welcome, sir. I also have with me Himanshu Baid. He is the managing director of Polymed. He has been a known figure over the last so many years in the medical device industry and is very passionate about doing business development inside and outside the country. And his motto has been to provide medical devices at affordable cost to the society. Himanshu ji started Polymed in 1995 and has over 23 years of experience in manufacturing of disposable medical devices. He is involved in corporate strategy, finance and sales, and marketing initiatives at Polymed. Welcome, Himanshu ji. I also have with me Miss Akriti Bajaj. Akriti is also a very known face. Over the last couple of years, Invest India has really made a strong pitch within the industry segment itself and has been assisting the government of India. Akriti is and medical devices lead at Invest India, the national investment and facilitation agency promoted by the government of India. Invest India is also an execution agency for the government of India, Startup India, AGLILI, accelerating growth for New India's innovation, project monitoring group initiatives. Akriti has a master's in biological sciences, a bachelor's in instrumentation engineering from Birla Institute of Technology and Sciences, Pilani. Thank you, Akriti, for joining today. I now move over to Ms. Rama Venugopalji. Rama Venugopal is the Executive Director, Value Added Corporate Services, Private Limited, Chennai, and also doubles up with IMED2. She has an over 27 year of experience in the management consulting organization, offering worldwide range of consulting solutions to various industries like manufacturing, healthcare, IT, ITES on management systems, strategic advisory services, M&A, funding facilitations, joint venture collaborations. Her 20 plus years connect with the healthcare sector in South India, having worked across various verticals like hospitals, diagnostics, labs, blood banks, CROs, healthcare technologies, and companies, allied companies. So welcome, ma'am, to the session today. I also have with me Dr. Velu. Dr. Velu is the chairman and managing director of GSK. Chairman and managing director of GSK Velu, and is also a technocrat and a serial entrepreneur. Dr. Velu is a visionary and a man who has his heart in the right place. His chief aim in life is to make healthcare available and affordable to the common man across nations. A self made man who lost out on many golden opportunities in life due to circumstances beyond his control, which would have been made a lesser human bitter, but Dr. Velu chose to follow his heart and render a human service to follow humans for over 30 years now. I welcome you, Dr. Velu. I also have with me Jatinji. Mr. Jatin Mahajan is the managing director of J Mitra and Company, India's leading IVD diagnostic manufacturing company. He has been at the helm of the company for the last 18 years and has steered the company to the present glory. A regional leader, exported to over 40 countries, and with more than 55 patents. He's been dedicated towards the cause of preserving human life through technology and innovation. And Jatin has over 16 years of experience in the field of medical diagnostics and joined his family business under the stewardship of his father and worked in all departments for almost 3 years, learning the nuances of the business, its methodologies, and issues and challenges. I welcome you, Jatinji, to this panel once more. To start the panel, just to give a brief around what we are going to discuss, I'm going to open the panel to each of the speakers. We'll start with Dr. Prasad first. Looking at the fact that India has now looked at becoming Atmanirbhar, do we feel that, Dr. Prasad, do we feel that the government can really take this Atmanirbhar forward to become Atmavishwas and take India forward to what is required to boost the exports for medical devices? And especially with the Drug Controller's Office, the Ministry of Health, the Department of Pharmaceuticals really being available these days 24 by 7 to take that vision forward. Your views on this, sir?
Morning. Audible to everyone?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Thanks for the invitation for me to share my views on today's topic on the expo of medical devices and how, as you all, Dr. Chhibber has started first with Atmanirbhar Bharat and how we will take advantage of this Bharat, the self-reliance, self-sustenance, further for exports. As you all know, how, as far as the Ministry of Health is concerned, how the drugs and cosmetics rules have evolved and how it has moved from a decade back. It was drugs and cosmetics rules, and with all stakeholders' deliberations, how we have moved from the amendment of the drugs and cosmetics rules coming into a new type of rules as a medical device rules with an implementation scheme of 1 year later and effective from January 1st, 2018. It was effectively implemented. And then you all know this all stemmed out of the National Health Policy 2017, wherein the Make in India program was being targeted, in which even the medical devices, one of the key sectors, apart from the pharma, apart from pharma and the pharmaceutical sector, the bulk drug industry, medical device and meditech has become a key important sector. And with Atmanirbhar Bharat, as of now, the present scenario where the COVID pandemic is evolved, how we are coping up in the last 5 to 6 months, how we have evolved and how the government is effectively targeting things to evolve, and how even the amendment of rules, even during the pandemic also there was amendment of rules from the Ministry of Health to facilitate even innovation, manufacturing, and even from the Department of Pharmaceuticals, the Ministry of Pharmaceuticals and Chemicals, where the PLI schemes or also productivity linked incentive schemes were also involved, how to develop the meditech parks and what are the incentives given, and how there was amendment of corporate social responsibility CSR rules for the sake of R&D purposes for vaccines, pharmaceuticals, including in vitro diagnostics, as well as the medical device. So this is how there was an amendment of the rules to facilitate, to leverage the industry, and creating a facility and infrastructure is the idea of a meditech parks, and how we have evolved. Today, if we see why the government of India has targeted this, because 70 to 80% of the imports of medical devices, we are only dependent on medical devices imports. Today, what we have achieved is Even Atmanirbhar also, what we are at the very infant stage in the high-end sector. We have only consumables like syringes, needles, etc., stents, etc., wherein we have a self-reliance or quite a number of good manufacturing plants are there in India. What about the high-end sector? Still, we have to develop that. This is an important area where we need to cope up. Now, how? Because the drug control department was also moving very slowly. They were, even after making amendment, they were giving a leverage of a lag period of 1 year for implementation of the device rules 2017, implementing in 2018. The recent definition of complete family of medical devices was being covered, entire set of medical devices covered, and how a time gap of given for its implementation in voluntary registration of 18 months was given. Class A and B devices, a time lag of 30 months was given for its implementation of the new medical device rules. A time lapse of 42 months were given for import and manufacture for Class C and D. So it is also moving slowly, facilitating the industry. And it's not that, as we have targeted, that Chhibber has told in the initially, when there is a CE certification, one US FDA certification, what is our certification? We have harmonized the device rules have been harmonized globally on par with the ISO rules or the international regulatory norms or the EC rules, whatever you call it as. So we have harmonized quality management systems have been incorporated, the QMS and the medical device rules. So certification by the drug control authority. It's not just licensing, even certifications, etc. will also pave way from Atmanirbhar of the self-reliant for manufacturing. What we need is, first we need to achieve a self-sufficiency, reduce the imports, then gradually go for the exports. So this is how what we think it. So when the COVID pandemic has made really necessity as the mother of invention, or the need of the mother of invention. How we were initially in the month of March, we were desperately looking for PPE kits. Today we have achieved a self-sufficiency, and we have asked DGFT, don't allow it to export it until we require the demands of the country. So that means the country is geared up to that level where we are able to even exports also. We have reached. So the requirement made us to think of, and the industry has also moved into that line of the PPE kits. Similarly, we can see ventilators. Many of manufacturers have come for ventilators, oxygen facilities, hand sanitizers. These are never thought of. The pandemic has triggered these things, and the government is also moving in tandem with these things. So how it is evolved, it is really in a positive atmosphere. The ecosystem is very positive. COVID, anyhow, it has become a blessing in disguise for the medical device industry and the pharma industry to come out and emerge not only from self-sufficiency. If you can see, even in drug sector, in 60s we used to import. In 90s we used to export, and we have increased to exports, and we have become the pharmacy of the third world, or you can say whatever you call it as, and we have reached that level. So why can't we reach also this also? I think with the facility of the government, with the facilitation of the government, with the improved mechanisms, the amendment of rules or the schemes or evolved, I think entirely the ecosystem has changed. The ecosystem has made in such a way, if you target it next 5 years, probably we would reach that stage what you are exactly thinking of, export strategy or increasing the exports. Today we are not. Today we are not in a position, only very sectoral, very minimal in that way, this thing. But we are not achieved even self-sufficiency in certain areas, like X-ray machines or defibrillators or any other high-end equipment, CT scans. But then the amendment of rules has made it, and the schemes have also evolved. The Meditech parks have also been, has also been it is in the evolving stage. The Vishakhapatnam facility, the Andhra Med Zone has really created a fantastic facility. That's really things how it works. We do not have a testing facilities. We do not have the biocompatibility things. So it's what is involved in these all Meditech parks also the clusters. This will facilitate definitely what we expected, the good manufacturing facilities, reaching the global standards. So apart from our own standards, the regulatory system standards, QMS certification or licensing, and even the BIS is also working in tandem for quality standards, National Quality Council of India, National Accreditation Boards. So we all moving in tandem, and everyone is targeting and facilitating to reach a stage from self-sufficiency, reducing the imports, reaching and the expectations of exports. As today the world is relying on our quality of pharmaceuticals or our vaccines, definitely we will be able to reach that stage of even for IVDs or even for the medical devices. I hope so. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. I mean, your words have been very encouraging, and in fact, over the last few months, we have, all of us from the industry, have seen the unparalleled effort by the government, as well as the industry, as well and academia, to urgently ideate and scale up operations in manufacturing, procurement, logistics, as well as expansion of capacity and capabilities. So moving on, in fact, this is a very important arena where the industry also plays a larger role with the government. So, Dr. Velu, as someone who's been really at the threshold, and especially during this pandemic, as you just alluded to while we were discussing offline, this has now become a new ball game altogether. How would you look at the efforts to regain a global advantage which India can really have now? Can I have your views on this?
Yeah, good morning, Rajiv. And it's nice to have Dr. Prasad sharing his views first. So, as we all said, first thing is the regulator has been the most active. To the extent I used to message Dr. Somani at 12 o'clock in the night, and I used to get at 12:05 a message back. So that is the kind of, I hear he only works in the night. So basically, it's actually the regulators, the promoters, the government has done a phenomenal job. If you look at it and go back and see, for me, it is almost 34th year of my career in this industry. And initially, we were in health careless. From health careless, we moved to health care. And we started our elder brother. Unfortunately, the age gap between our elder brother and us, which is pharmaceutical industry and medical device, is huge. They woke up 20 years, and it took for us almost 20 years to wake us, because they are wake us up, and it required something like a COVID pandemic to wake up our industry. We have been doing our best in terms of not only the earlier, we as like in Privitron or many companies, when we thought that when we really want to get the export or we want to get acceptance outside India, we need to have factories outside India. The Privitron started doing a lot of exports when we acquired a business in Finland or later in Turkey, and even just before the pandemic, we even opened our factory in China. But really, this pandemic has shown us that Indian products will be accepted fully. Like our Kiran, the brand which we have is currently being sold in US, Europe, and Japan, all three. And we need to sell to these market to get some kind of credibility with Indian customers. So we have to go back and see how pharma industry grew up. The pharma industry grew not purely focused on Indian business. The day they started exporting, their credibility went up, their acceptance went up, and they are also market share of the pharma industry in Indian drugs today. If you take top 10 pharma companies, all of them are Indian companies. Unfortunately, if you take the top 10 medical device companies, it's still mostly dominated by multinationals. I think this needs to reverse. I suggest the crisis which we saw today in the COVID-19 pandemic is going to be the turning point for us to really start launching medical device, and all of us, whether Himanshu's company or Jatin's company, Jayvitra, Parliament, all of them have really come together. And if you say the top 10 companies of medical devices, and Shahjanand, you are doing a great job in terms of selling it not only in India, including US, Europe. So when we start showing that we are exportable and our products are accepted in US, Europe, Japan, automatically our credibility in our domestic industry grows. So we are under compulsion to exports. And exports is no longer a kind of a luxury. For us to get credibility in Indian market, we need to follow all the standards. And many of our facilities are USFDA approved. Almost all of them are European CE certified. So regulation without devices devices without regulations or even drugs without regulations is non-existent. Today we need to follow regulations as a must. So having a good regulator, we don't want a lenient regulator. We want a regulator who's fast, responsive, but at the meantime very stern too. Because that is the kind of regulator we are looking for, and I'm happy to see that drug controller is becoming that. Earlier there was a lot of debate whether drug controller should be the one who controls medical devices. Today we can say with a lot of confidence there is already somebody who has created an industry, which is a pharma industry, by being strict in regulation. Today nobody really suspect the quality of Indian pharmaceuticals anywhere in the world. Same way, I think they should regulating is important, or also promoting through Department of Pharmaceuticals. All of us are asking is please have a focused division within this. Within CDSO, there should be medical device focused activities. Within Department of Pharma, there should be medical device focused activities. And another thing which we all need to know today, tariff is not the only way to control imports. The non-tariff barriers. For example, we started a factory in China because it takes 3 to 5 years to get product registration. I'm sure Himanshu will agree that, and Jatin will agree. If you want to really sell in China, they don't say that. But by the time we get a regulatory approvals for imports, it takes years, 3 to 5 years. But when we put actually manufacturing plant in China, it took only 30 days for us to get going. So they have their own methodology of without saying to promote manufacturing. So we want regulators as well as the promoters, which is Department of Pharma and CDSO, to work together to create with no leniency. We are not looking for leniency. The product should have all the standards, but we should be responsive, and we should also be kind of bilateral. If another country is following very, very strict norms, our imports has to be made difficult, whether we like it or not. It has to be made difficult, because this is a country where we want to take this medical device import from 85% to less than 20%, 30% in the next 5-10 years. And that's what Prime Minister also is saying, and that's what the entire government is standing behind. And it's, as an industry, we need to really increase. And I think what has happened in the past 3 months is a classic example. Dr. Prasad has already talked about it. We don't import any more PPEs, COVID testing kits, or we don't import ventilators. We don't even, only ventilators is taking some more time, but otherwise all others, hand sanitizers, PPE, COVID testing kits, all this we have become not only import dependent, but also export focused. So the export is not anymore a luxury. It is something which we all are obliged to do for us to get acceptance even in India. So like pharma industry, we have a lot of examples in pharma industry. Let's follow our older brother, maybe the older by 20 years, but at least we follow our older brother and start learning that in the nuances of how to do business, not only in India, but also across the world, including US, Europe, Japan. Thank you.
Thank you, Veluji. I think we get the cue which you want to really take forward from. I now move over to Himanshu. Himanshu, you've seen the inherent competence and strength of the medical device sector for the past so many years. One question which everyone, I mean, you've been on forums for almost the last couple of months now, and everywhere we hear this particular dialogue being addressed through you only. So my same question comes back to you. What will be the short-term and long-term strategy to be adopted for the promotion of the medtech sector? And if we really need to become an export-driven country, what would be those 5 things which you feel could take it forward?
So I think, Rajiv, thank you so much, and Dr. Prasad, thank you so much. I think, first of all, I want to thank CDSCO for being very proactive even for exports. So whatever, permissions we wanted for exports, or even we wanted manufacturing licenses, and I'll tell you, maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it used to take around 1 year to get a manufacturing license for a medical device, because multiple level of inspections and, regional office, state office, central office. Now we are getting licenses in 1 month, less than a month. So that's a big change which has happened. It's a great support to the industry from CDSCO. So I want to compliment the department, because that will enable us to make faster in India. Because if we had to wait for 1 year to get a license, now we're getting in 1 month. So it will become a big enabler for us to make products in India and even to export. Even all the permissions for exports like free sales or even the GMP certificates, will be getting in maybe less than 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So these are big changes which have happened. So I want to compliment the department. Now, coming back to your question, Rajiv, short term and long term. I think short term is India, in Indian medical device industry still needs a lot of handholding. And handholding means, there was support through MEIS for exports. So, I want that scheme to continue for a while, because what we have seen is exports growing almost from 1.2 billion, 1.3 billion to around 2.2 billion in last 2 years. And that has happened because, 4% MEIS scheme has been dropped to 2%, but still 500 to 600 crores additional incentive came to the medtech industry because of this scheme. And that helped us to invest more in R&D and also to invest in business development, market development. We were able to go to foreign exhibitions, showcase our products there. So these are the things which were done in the short term to push exports out of India. And I would want government to continue this. And of course, this National Medical Device Promotion Council, which was formed under aegis of the DPIT, it should have very active meetings. We have just had one meeting in 2020. The council was formed in way back in 2019, mid of 2019. But maybe now this is the best way to have meetings, the way we are meeting today. So even and we have a good representation from all industry bodies, whether is all the large industry bodies are present in those forums. So we need to interact more and also look at certain champion sectors which India can push for export. Today, in I think 10 or 12 products, India has a great potential for exporting, and we are already exporting. For example, in consumables, we already have a big export potential. We are already exporting to many countries. As a company, I can tell you we're exporting 118 countries today. All our disposable products, and it's going to all global big markets. But so there is a potential. That means there is a potential. So to harness this in the short term, I think we need handholding, and maybe government can bring out certain champion sectors, 8 to 10 champion products. Okay, these products we are going to handhold you, take a larger market share, like what pharma has done 20 years ago. Dr. Velu clearly said the Big Brother has already shown us how they have acted in the past, how pharma industry from being a very local industry 20 years ago have gone global. So we can go global if we have certain handholding. So we need maybe all the government departments to come forward, like DPIIT, the Ministry of Health, Department of Pharma, which is championing us today, all to come together and maybe in the National Medical Device Promotion Council to help us in the long run. And now coming to, let's say, a long-term strategy, I think I would, in my past conference also, I have very clearly reiterated that the problem is at the middle level. Large companies are growing anyway today. What Trivitron has done under Dr. Velu and what SMT has done under Bhargav and all Ganesh and HMD or Polymed or so all these companies have done well, and they are J Mitra. They have grown in last 15-20 years. They have reached a certain scale, but there are only 8 to 10 companies, let's say over 500 crores in India in the medtech sector. So what happens to the middle sector? Especially companies from 20 crores to 100 crores or 20 crores to 50 crores. These are the ones which are struggling the most. So my request to the government would be to create a medical device innovation fund or upgradation fund, which will help the middle sector, the middle level of the companies to access that fund. And like I'm talking about our MSME sector basically, because that is the biggest potential. Now look at PPE, N95 mask, IVD kits. Which sector did the best? The MSME sector. Today, more than 500 companies came in the MSME sector to make such products like masks, PPE kits, IVD kits, or even ventilators. All came from MSME sector. So we need to push through a fund. Maybe we create an innovation, like pharma had an innovation fund. Even textile ministry had an innovation fund, upgradation fund. So we can create a fund under, for medical devices and then give it to this MSME sector to upgrade technology so that they become, let's say, factories of the world and they are able to export products to global markets. The second point I would like to make is about reimbursement of, let's say, Dr. Velu said his plants are FDA approved. So these are very few companies which have their plants FDA approved in India. Very few companies have FDA approved plants. So how do we bring more companies in that fold? How do we bring more companies in the European, comply with the European regulation? So I think, and the cost is increasing day by day. Today, the cost is prohibitive for MSME sector. So can we have a reimbursement of cost by the pharma ministry or from DPIIT for export promotion, for F5, 510K regulation or for CE regulation, some reimbursement of cost. The third point is, Indian companies have a disability. We have worked with Niti Aayog and Invest India, and we looked at all the disabilities what Indian companies have by making in India. When we look at Vietnam, China, or countries around us, how we can learn from those countries. So I think to me the biggest learning is that if government says we are going to give you 4% MEIS for exports, so look at the disabilities what we have in India, create a fund and help the companies, because this is the time we need the biggest support from the government. The government has recognized medtech as a very important sector. We all know it. Even now, our Prime Minister is talking about medtech sector. Even on 15th August, he talked about PPE kits and N95 masks. So everybody is today aware of the importance of the medtech sector, about ventilators. Everybody is aware. Today, this medtech sector only helped to treat patients or to prevent the spread of the virus. Otherwise, it would have been spread a much bigger way in India if we had not made those products in the right time. So we need certain handholding, and maybe this kind of export scheme should need to continue for next 3 to 5 years to develop the export sector from India. Then the government can taper it down. But initially, we need that support to access new markets, to access, let's say, developed countries. Otherwise, we'll not be able to do it. The fourth part is R&D. So today on the R&D front, there is no benefit to any company today. So I would again request the government to bring certain incentive for innovation in India. So products which are patented in India, products which are patented globally, there should be certain, let's say, advantage to those companies in terms of some grants or certain things, so that innovation is always rewarded. Because today, look at China. China is filing thousands of patents on medical devices every year. Indian companies file hundreds of patents, only a few hundred, I would say. So there's a big gap. So how do we fill that gap? So maybe today the cost is very high, maybe it's very prohibitive. Even to write a patent, to do a referral check of a patent. So if there is certain help for innovative companies, then it will be a big way in helping promoting manufacturing and exports out of India for these kind of devices. The fifth point I would like to make is on funding. Today, the funding available to companies in China, Vietnam is maybe at 3 or 4% today from the banks. Whereas in India, the funding to MSME sector is still available at 8-9% or even 10% today. So, or even some companies are borrowing at 11%. So we need to bring down the funding cost in India. So especially for exports, the funding cost has to come down. If we have to be globally competitive, then the funding cost should come down to 3 to 4%, especially because today country is, look at our foreign reserve now. In last 1 year, our reserves have increased by almost $100 billion in India. So India has sufficient dollars today. So we can use these dollars to fund, our export sectors and cheaper funding to export sectors. Use this currency, use these dollars, which we have got today, to help propel our domestic industry to prepare for export markets and to get a cheaper funding. So these are my 5 points, generally, which can help the industry to grow. And I think the biggest advantage I want to tell you, Rajiv, is today, and because I have a plant in China and Dr. Velu also has a plant in China, and what we have seen is China cannot be the future factory of the world because China has got expensive. Today, the cost of labor in China is average $700 to $800 minimum. Whereas in India, we are still at between $100 to $200. In certain places, we have 7,800 salaries, or even today, even 10,000, 12,000. So the cost of people in India is very, very cheap. Cost of engineers is very cheap compared to China. Let's use this to our advantage. This is the best time, I think I would say, the industry is in, where we should use this to our advantage. We have medical device parks coming in. We have government's focus on this industry. Let's combine all the energies together and propel this industry to the next level. And I think India can become a net exporter for medical equipment and devices in next 2 to 3 years. That is my feeling, from this point.
Excellent, Himanshu. Excellent. I completely agree with you, and I think everyone on the panel would also agree with you that financial support in the form of fiscal benefits, technological advancements, policy changes are bound to create a strong opportunity for India to build a global advantage. Coming to Jatinji now, Jatinji, you've actually as per what I gather from your LinkedIn pages and others, you've really built it from the scratch and then have been helping an entire business to take forward. And what would be your view when you look at the IVD industry, look at innovation, look at integration, look at indigenization towards an Atmanirbhar Bharat and also towards propelling exports in that sense?
Sure. Rajiv, thank you very much for this question. And I would also like to thank Asochan for giving me this opportunity to share my views on this very interesting subject. Well, my colleagues here, Dr. Velu and Dr. Prasad and Himanshu ji here, they've shared most of the points. And I actually concur and I agree to most of those points which they have already shared. So I like to add some more points to the points which already have been shared. Is that most of the MSME companies in the medtech are basically in the range of 70 to 80%, and most of them are deprived of capital. So I agree with Himanshu when he says that they need to be supported in terms of capital. So why they should be supported is because the sooner, so in terms of lower interest rates, or there has to be some other methodology so that they can come back. So in terms of if they have a lower capex, they can become profitable and they can sustain their operations or business models as in the long term, in short term, or in medium term. So that is very important. Now, specifically in IVD industry, the main thing what we have seen in COVID-19, it's been an eye opener. So I would also like to thank DCGI and CDSO because I have seen which is a mindset change. Earlier, it used to really take a lot of time to get approvals, but in my case, my personal experience, we have got approvals in 3 days flat, and it's amazing. I mean, thanks to the government, DCGI and CDSO, it really changed the game, and it's actually helped us to go to the next level. So in COVID, the spotlight has come onto the diagnostic test. So what Dr. Velu also said, we have always been under the shadows of the big brother. Never ever, nobody has spoken about the diagnostic industry per se. But diagnostics is a very critical part of the entire equation because 70% of the clinical diagnosis or the results is based on this particular test kit. And in the COVID times, what Dr. Prasad also said, it's a best example of being Atmanirbhar. So like we all talked about PPE kits, we talked about sanitizers, we talked about masks and other accessories which were required. And from a volume, which is a nil volume, we have gone to a volume which is basically self-sufficient. And from self-sufficiency, we have now become so strong that we are now willing to export. Now, this is the attitude of all the business owners which is required, so that we can put India on the world map. That's what is important. Now, in IVD, the main thing also is the critical component, which is the raw material supplies, the antigen and the antibody. So what we have seen also is, in this COVID times, the supply chain of most of the medtech companies was impacted, whether it's a back end or a front end. So that needs to be improvised, and there needs to be a lot of methods, or there has to be some system. For example, we can export right now, but the AFH rates are so expensive that the other alternative needs to be export. What is that other alternative? Is the sea freight. So sea freights are happening, but then the question is that a good solution? So that is something we need to think over and brainstorm so that we can have the best solution possible. Now, another thing, what Himanshu said, there needs to be a priority list of the government, because once we identify what is those specific diseases we need to focus on, we can actually build up a critical mass. Very important, because once we have the critical mass, then we can actually go to the next level of being Atmanirbhar. But before we have the critical mass, we need to have that decision of what are the critical priority diseases which India needs to address. So that is one of the most important things. So that manufacturers can get interested that yes, this is an area where we can actually enter, and it is good for our business, for our profitability, and also good for all the stakeholders concerned in terms of quality, in terms of usage, in terms of many other attributes. The other thing is, in most of the MSMEs, the challenge is the technical bandwidth. What Dr. Prasad also mentioned, it's absolutely profound. When MDR 2017 rules rolled in, there was this need of the hour where a lot of handholding was done. In a lot of meetings, I was fortunate to be part of those presentations where Dr. Somani also encouraged all the industry stakeholders to actually come forward and build up this capacity. So which is the need of the hour, and it is required. So when I look at raw material supplies, so coming back to the raw material supplies, which is part of the technical capability, because this is capability and capacity needs to be expanded, and they go hand in hand. So in India right now, a lot of companies have this challenge that they need to source their raw material antigens and antibodies. So whether it's they have to go to either US or a Europe or countries in Southeast Asian countries. Now, if we have this ecosystem where we have those supplies, so what will happen is we will become self-sufficient, and ultimately due to the vision of our honorable Prime Minister of becoming Atmanirbhar. So that the encouragement of go vocal for local is something that we need to work upon. And the other thing is, we need to have conducive environment wherein, even if we make mistakes, because, IVD is different from the pharma sector, because in terms of, the application, the science part, it's totally profound, because that is outside the human body. So even if something goes wrong, so nothing will happen to the patient, because I do understand that patient safety and customer safety is of paramount importance. But when we look at pharma, the pill is taken inside the human body, so there may be some biological impact or clinical impact. But in diagnostics, nothing of that sort will happen. It's more of a B2B market. So we need to have an ecosystem wherein the companies, even if something goes wrong, we need to do a CAPA, a root cause analysis as to what can be corrected, so that we can actually give our customers a good experience in terms of either it can be a product or it can be a service. The other challenge which MSME companies face is basically about R&D. Now, what Himanshu also said, R&D is not there, so there needs to be some kind of funds which should be available. Either we do a tech transfer, either we buy the technology abroad and do a backward integration and produce it in India, or second option is we should have academia industry interface where whatever diseases we need to have, immediately it is available. See, I can cite examples of countries in Southeast Asia where in COVID times, immediately there was a requirement of COVID, and within flat 30 days, the antigen, antibodies, everything, the final kit was produced. Now, that is something which is lacking in India. That is something which we need to actually have, so that once we have a strong bonding of the industry academy interface, we can become Atmanirbhar.
I completely agree with you, Jatinji, on all your points. In fact, Himanshu and Dr. Velu have already given certain nuances around this. Sorry to in fact cut you in between, because we've still got two panel members here. I'll move the focus to Invest India. Akriti, What are the emerging opportunities for medtech manufacturing in India, and how is Invest India involved in taking the Atmanirbhar Bharat agenda forward for us to really boost our export strategy?
Thank you, Rajiv ji, for the introduction and the question. Good morning to my esteemed panelists and audience listening to us today. Let me answer the first question. Let me answer the second question first, because it will kind of set the primer to the upcoming discussion as well. For those who may not know, Invest India is the national investment promotion and facilitation agency promoted by the Government of India. Our core role is not only to provide end-to-end facilitation support to both global and domestic players in their investment journey, but also to act as a bridge between government and industry. So basically, putting in short words, we are the voice of industry in the government. And this kind of catalyzes the Atmanirbharta movement forward. For example, we have been helping companies resolve various issues that they have, which lead to over reliance in import. Currently, to give an example, we are facilitating around 70 global and domestic players in their investment journey in India. So these global players are not only exploring India as the next destination, but also are expanding their footprints to more locations within India. On the government front, how we help is we work very closely with both state and central ministries, as well as foreign missions. Because as a structure, we have a trimetric structure. We believe that all these three parameters, the sector, the country, and the state level interventions are required to make and catalyze the Atmanirbharta movement ahead. To give a recent example rather, Invest India is currently working very closely with the Department of Pharmaceuticals on the operational aspects of the production linked incentive in the medical devices, as well as the medical device park schemes, and putting forth the pertinent points raised by the industry to DOP. Coming to the next question that you raised, as rightly mentioned by the industry leaders here, we currently are, as in India's potential is currently beyond the consumables and disposables that we have good ability in. We currently export both the consumables and disposables to international market as well, and we use it for a domestic consumption. But we import around 85 to 90% of these high-end sophisticated medical devices. But the production linked incentive is set to change this import reliance, and especially the creation and the promotion of medical device parks such as the Andhra Pradesh MedTech zone. India can actually become the leading destination for the high-end medical devices. The PLI scheme currently, as you're aware, it focuses on the high-end sophisticated medical devices such as radiotherapy medical devices, radiology, imaging, nuclear imaging devices, anesthetics, cardiorespiratory medical devices, as well as the implants, which also include the implantable electronic devices. The Department of Pharmaceuticals has recognized specific products even within these segments and are willing to consider additional products within these segments if need arises. We believe that this scheme, along with the medical device park scheme, will actually be a game changer and propel and accelerate the Atmanirbhar Bharat agenda ahead. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Akriti. Thanks a lot. I think, as Himanshu ji said at the starting itself, Invest India has been a big fulcrum on which we all have had enough meetings where we could take forward certain key areas and core areas which we also want, I think, we'll be able to take forward. Ramaji, last but not the least, I have a very targeted question to you. After listening to everyone from the industry, the government, Invest India, how can the learnings from the last few months enhance our practical and implementable knowledge, which would be able to utilize for the larger impact, especially the disparity between import and export? This is targeted because, your entire 30 odd years as a consultant has really made an impact to the industry. So how would you take this knowledge and make it practical and implementable over the last couple of months?
Thank you, Mr. Chhibber, for this question. The COVID has actually, I would say, exposed the weaknesses in the system, and it has also showcased the capabilities and the competencies of our country. And the COVID has exposed the weaknesses, the strengths, the opportunities across the global supply chain, not just India specific. What is needed is what the COVID has actually made us realize is, as somebody who's been working very closely in the domain of management systems and on standards, on the certifications, on the testing, as a country, we do have lots and lots of capabilities. And for example, we were all talking about PPEs, and which is actually a national priority. For consultants like us, it was a 360-degree dimension for us. Okay, working with the manufacturers, working with the testing agencies, and then looking at inspection scenarios, standards, certifications. As a country, we have the capabilities, we have the competencies, but what was happening was the quality infrastructure of the country was not promoted in the global markets. Medical devices are regulated products across the globe, and it is the regulatory framework and the regulatory system of the respective countries which will define the quality management systems requirements, product certifications or management systems, or the testing requirements. So the COVID also made us realize that we do have infrastructure gaps from a quality perspective. The need to have more testing laboratories in the country, the need to have more inspection bodies, and more focus on standards development and many other things. What was happening was, as I said, all these things are defined by the importing countries' regulatory requirements. So the exporters have to really focus on the markets in which they really wanted to export and requirements. A simple thing I will tell you in the case of PPE, what has happened is, though the PPEs are a national priority or a global priority, where we all got stuck is like, for example, we do have strong testing laboratories in the country which are all accredited to the global standards. But unfortunately, our test reports were not accepted by the global markets. So whether it is US or European Union, and unfortunately, as a country, our accreditation system is also part of the mutual recognition agreement. So our test reports should be accepted in the global markets. The test reports are very, very critical and important. What has happened was this, what we have realized is our capabilities, our quality infrastructure of the country, our capabilities in the standards space, our capabilities in the certification space, in the testing space, inspection space, is not demonstrated to the global markets. This is something which has not happened, I would say, at least in the last 10, 15 years. We do have two apex bodies in the country. One is Bureau of Indian Standards, which is our national standards body, and we do have Quality Council of India, which is the apex body for the quality. If the brand India has to be promoted, whose responsibility it is to promote brand India in the export scenario? It is the responsibility of the export promotion councils. And Mr. Baid has very clearly listed about the need to have a champion for the products, if not a champion sector, at least the champion products. Now we have demonstrated the same in the services space. We have a global exhibition of services which happens year on year in the country, where the government of India has identified 12 champion sectors, and healthcare is one of the sectors listed under the champion sector, where the Service Export Promotion Council has created a dedicated initiative for healthcare called India Heals. So India is the destination for healing, and that is a campaign which was created, and year on year. It is 2 years old and it is actually doing extremely well. And the Services Export Promotion Council, along with the Ministry of External Affairs, are promoting healthcare services from the country. A similar engagement is required. So we do have a Medical Device Export Promotion Council. The ownership and authority to promote our brand India in the global markets is with the Export Promotion Council. Now, this is what is needed. Now, what is it that Export Promotion Council has to showcase to the global markets is our innovation ecosystem in the country, the innovation hubs that we have created in the last 10 years. We never had that strong innovation ecosystem in the country. The last 7-8 years, what the country has witnessed is a vibrant ecosystem, and BIRAC is doing an amazing work. BBT is doing an amazing work in the medical devices, promoting medical devices innovations. We do have a Startup India, a NASCOM, which focuses on health technology companies. So we have created strong capabilities. We have many health technology companies, and the country is a strong hub for software technologies. And we are also known as a precision engineering hub in the global markets. Our manufacturing capabilities are recognized in the global markets for its precision engineering capabilities. That is the reason why the automotive industry story was such a big success, and electronics manufacturing industry story was such a big success because we are recognized as a precision engineering hub in the global markets. And in the well, promoting a product, especially a products like medical devices or the drugs, what is important is to showcase and promote our quality infrastructure. The buyers of the medical devices ultimately are more interested in understanding more about your standards and the certifications and your accreditations that you have, because the standards and certifications are known globally either to make or break the deals. That is the power and the role of quality infrastructure of the country. So what is or needs to be demonstrated in the global markets is we have everything. We have everything in place. But what is happening is the innovations are happening in silos and the manufacturing hubs are happening in silos. Well, there has to be an integrated pitch at a global level to, first of all, showcase and demonstrate our strong regulatory framework that we have created it. That we only talk about US FDA in India. I still don't understand why, to be very honest. And we do have a strong regulatory ecosystem, a regulatory infrastructure. Unfortunately, our own user industry in our country, the hospitals and the doctors do not understand our regulatory framework. And I have suggested this to Dr. Somani. Please establish a strong connect with the user industry first, because our user industry should know about our domestic regulatory framework. I have suggested that CDSCO should do regular initiatives with the healthcare industry for the doctors and the hospitals to showcase to them the strengths of our regulatory framework. The same manner, the user industry do not understand the standard side of it, but the technical standards, because that is the duty of Bureau of Indian Standards. We have also raised this issue with them, requesting them to educate the user industry about the various national standards that are developed and how our standards are harmonized along with the international standards. Because as a management system consultant, I can tell you that we have everything in place in the country. What was missing is our apex bodies have to establish that link in the global market to promote, to showcase. All that is needed is our innovation hubs have to be promoted, our health technology innovations have to be promoted, our medical device manufacturing hubs have to be promoted, and that is all that is required. These are all the ingredients to make a product, and we have the ingredients are ready, and the recipes that is needed, and that is the responsibility. Export Promotion Council, and I can tell you something much that Service Export
Yeah.
Promotion Council can do something good in the healthcare space. Why can't the Product Export Promotion Council do it? And
Yes.
having worked closely with the Service Export Promotion Council's India Hills initiative, let me tell you, the global buyers, at least I was also part of this initiatives working closely. The global buyers who were coming, they're all healthcare councils. They're all from medical associations. They were doctors, they were hospitals, they were buyers. They were also asking, can we also see the products here? We are interested in getting connects with some manufacturers of drugs and devices. So can we also establish a connect? That is what has made me realize, why is an SCPC functioning independently? Why is an EPC functioning independently? Why don't we have Healthcare Export Promotion Council, which promotes both products and services? At the end of the day,
Absolutely,
the
ma'am. I
products and
completely
services
agree
might
with
be
you on.
doctors, who are the doctors,
Sorry, sorry
hospitals.
to
Yeah.
sorry to cut you in between, ma'am. I completely agree with you. We're slightly, running against time on this, and
Okay.
prudent points, very prudent points. Practically, 10 seconds to almost everyone. Dr. Prasad, we need to have a clear and well-defined national level policies. So, as on behalf of the Drug Controller's Office, how would that be really turned around when you look at export promotion in the country right now?
Well, am I audible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. So one is, as Ramaji has told, that we should have an outreach, a global outreach, how our standards and how our certification procedures, how our conformity assessments, or how our quality management systems are harmonized and are on the benchmark at the international level, how it is. In fact, these things have already been done. So we need to interact with user end. That's a very important piece which she has targeted it. Yes, it's true. And then we need to evolve. We need to have a, just like as Ms. Velu has told that how as a farmer has 20 years ahead as a big brother, we need to reach such a stage. No, so that's the area we need to focus it, and of course, it is in a very nascent stage. It's implementation. The medical devices have come, and now the large basket of the devices is coming, and still we have given a time lapse of voluntary registration. We are in an evolving phase. Yes, unless the industry comes, the innovation comes, this a congenial atmosphere and an ecosystem is developed, and regulatory framework is always in tandem with the industry. Like the pharma industry need to be. As far as with exports is concerned, see, the exports regulatory framework is always never interfere in terms of exports. The regulatory mechanisms always with indigenous manufacturing and with the imports. So once we create an ecosystem of manufacturing and benchmarking standards and quality standards, etc., I think definitely we not have any hurdle in terms of exports. Secondly, the council, the MSMEs, etc., has a responsibility. There is farm exercise which is doing fantastically well. I think we need to, similarly, parallelly, the medical device exports or IVDs exports also, they need to evolve in such a mechanism for that, and how they are working with with our regulatory framework. I think we need to go a long way on the similar lines of pharma industry. So definitely, what the industry experts will do, maybe in another 5 to 10 years more. Thank you.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, one last question to Himanshu ji and Dr. Velu and Jatin. 10 seconds each. I know we're over 4 minutes time right now. As a CEO, as an MD, what would be your one thing when you look at Make in India as an attractive destination, both in terms of revenue and profitability?
No, I think we need to strengthen our National Medical Device Promotion Council, and under aegis of that, I think a lot of decisions can be taken to propel this industry.
Dr. Velu?
As I said, we need to move from being now child to a teenager to an adult. Now we have to work together with the government and also with the academia together. So rather than expecting government to do everything or academia to do everything, we need to really take our responsibility of working with both of them closely. to make this industry not only make in India, not only for India, but also for the world.
Jatinji?
Yeah, so basically, my take on this is that we should strengthen our infrastructure and our regulations should be strong. I mean, we should be. I mean, this is basically the ecosystem that I'm referring to. That infrastructure and regulation should be very strong, and that encouragement should be there. Even if we make mistakes, it's okay, but let's move forward. So that should be being penalized for every small mistakes. Uh, being responsible, as what Dr. Velu said, being responsible and taking actions, because with actions only we get results. So everything is interrelated. So this is my take on your
Thanks.
question. Thank you.
Thanks, Jatinji. Thank you very much, everyone. In fact, thank you, Dr. Prasad, for really looking at the devices sector now in a very different way altogether from a government's point of view. Thank you, Himanshu ji. Thank you, Dr. Velu. Thank you, Jatinji. Thank you, Rama ma'am. Thank you, Akriti. It's been a very fruitful discussion. We completely agree to the fact that everyone alluded to is that clear and well-defined national level policy and a roadmap to define a short, medium, and long-term goals for this medtech sector is what is now required. And we feel that this is what will propel all of us from becoming Atmanirbhar and also gaining an Atmavishwas. Thank you very much, everyone on the panel. I thank ASSOCHAM for this very intriguing discussion today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.